I love that. We on a sister
Yes, we
ship. I
are.
love that.
Yes, we are.
Welcome to Sister Ship Sunday.
Sunday.
That's right. That's right. Hello, my ladies. Look, I'm so
Welcome back.
excited. Well, thank you. And
Yeah.
look,
Welcome back.
this
We
was the
missed
first
you.
one. Well, I appreciate that. I missed
We
y'all
mi-
too.
we missed you.
I missed y'all too. But this is the first show I'm on with Sherry, Miss Lady
Wisdom.
Wisdom. In a while. I'm so glad to have Lady Wisdom on with us today. And Mama C, um, man, we've got some powerhouses in the room today. That's all I'm going to say. This is going to be a very interesting show today.
Hey, we coming real and we coming straight.
Woo! Seriously, seriously. So, with that said, let's talk about what we're talking about today. So, we all know we deal with this on a regular basis, whether it's in the political realm, whether it's in relationships, whether it's in the office,
Or at
at
home.
home, or what have you. Narcissistic behaviors. Now, there's a couple layers we're going to get into here as it relates to, what narcissism is, what are the personality, it's a personality disorder.
Yes, it is.
How overt it is.
How covert.
It is. How it relates to your relationship. So, when we think about narcissistic behavioral abuse, because it is an element of abuse.
Oh, yeah.
It's emotional abuse. Abuse comes in so many different forms, and some people don't even realize that narcissistic behavior is also an abusive level of behavior in
Absolutely.
relationships.
Absolutely.
So we don't want to just talk about the abuse in itself, but we have to educate people on what narcissistic behavior is to understand the signs, but then how do we heal ourselves from it or identify it to the point where we can then pull ourselves out of those type of relationships that are abusive.
I think when you get knee deep into those types of relationships, it becomes very hard to get out because you don't really realize that you're in a narcissistic relationship. Matter of fact, people don't even understand what narcissism is. And that's the key, is understanding those personality disorders and traits that make up or comprised of narcissistic personality disorder. And there's also narcissistic personality traits. You can have some traits but not have the disorder.
And that's the clarifying point, because I do feel, and it was funny, I was just having this conversation. We were talking about it yesterday, and then my husband and I talk about this as well, because obviously he's heavy into the political frame, and he's always talking about what's going on in the political realm. However, again, there could be, I feel, in my personal opinion, that there are many people that have traits,
right,
not necessarily the disorder in itself.
Right.
So I think we need to talk about what are those elements, because again, when we talk about abuse from a relationship standpoint, there's three parts to that. There's the idolization, the devaluation, and then the rejection. And we'll talk about that in a moment, but I think we really need to define narcissistic traits versus this disorder.
Right. And I think what I was able to find out as I research everything, I want to know because, and what started me on this search to understand narcissism better was there was a woman who was in the circle that I was part of, circle of women I was part of, and she kept claiming to be an empath. But her behaviors were not in alignment with being an empath, no matter how much she professed to be one. And I kept saying, it confused me. I'm like, I don't know any people who are empaths who act like this. So what is the deal here? So when I started searching up narcissism, I found that there were a number of traits of narcissism. And also, these traits also fall into the narcissistic personality disorder. See, there are 9 traits, but it takes 5 of those traits to diagnose you with narcissistic personality disorder. Okay, you don't necessarily have to be, and that has to be defined through a clinical process. But the traits that I found were grandiosity and self-importance, fantasies of success, perfection, or power, a strong conviction of being special and unique above and beyond other folks, a need for admiration and praise, a sense of entitlement, a pattern of exploiting others for personal gain. And I've known a few people like that, trust me. Low empathy, envy, jealousy, and distrust, and arrogance, haughtiness, and scorn. So, if you go to a therapist and they diagnose 5 of these, again, you are considered to have the narcissistic personality disorder. But you can have some of these traits and not necessarily be a narcissist.
Well, it's interesting because I think there's a lot of confusion of, people throw narcissism out there or narcissistic behavior out there very quickly when they see one of these traits come out and they say, you're a narcissist, or that person's a narcissist because they have that trait. And I think it's important to make sure that when we talk about a diagnosis of being a narcissist, having a narcissistic personality disorder versus the specific traits, which again, I feel that in society, there is a majority of us that have one or some of these traits.
Yeah.
So we have to be very clear that, we are very careful on how we label people in society based on what we think 1 or 2 of these traits these individuals have.
Right.
Because we're very quick sometimes to be judging people based on specific traits, which doesn't necessarily mean they have this particular disorder.
But, I was going to say this for the end, but there's also positive or healthy narcissism. And what I found, the notes I took here is healthy narcissism helps you recognize and value your worth. You can even consider it a type of self-love. With healthy narcissism, you recognize attributes that make you special and unique, but you don't assume these traits mean you are better than other people. Exactly. You just recognize your own uniqueness and you embrace that. Healthy narcissism could involve telling yourself, I deserve better, after being passed over twice for a promotion you worked hard to earn, or wanting recognition when you do a good job. Taking pride in the fact that your loved ones trust you and come to you for support. And finally, recognizing and appreciating your own intelligence and creativity. Taking pride in your talents, accomplishments, and appearance can be empowering. In fact, healthy narcissism can help protect you from distress by boosting your resilience or ability to weather whatever life tosses in your direction. So, so I think we have to be very clear, when we understand or we want to label somebody a narcissist. They may not be a narcissist. Maybe those traits are traits of healthy narcissism that helps that person become more empowered and live an empowered life.
And you should be able to, and that's the other thing I was thinking about as well, is you should be able to, and I don't want to say put yourself on a pedestal, but to empower yourself.
Right.
To value your worth.
Right.
Without having to disvalue or devalue someone else in the process.
Absolutely.
I think that's where the disconnect is. What are your thoughts?
I believe that sometimes people don't realize you don't just wake up narcissistic. So you've dealt with some kind of childhood trauma, or even in your adult life, you learn how. So you have people that are not ever held accountable, and because they've not been shown how to be held accountable, they think that they are always correct.
Mhm.
Everything that they say is right.
Mhm.
That no matter how much it's a lie or untruth, it's the truth to them because nobody calls them on it.
Right. Right.
Sometimes narcissism comes because a person has felt devalued.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or undervalued.
Mhm.
You grew up in a household with multiple siblings, and the ones that are, I would say, the ones that are considered bad,
Mm.
get more of attention. So you kind of like you get skipped over,
Mhm.
or it's kind of like telling you to be quiet, don't
Mhm.
say anything. So what ends up happening is, as you get older, you try to make a voice for yourself.
Mhm.
You want a grandiose soul because nobody else has held you up.
Mhm.
You don't feel empowered or encouraged. So
Mhm.
you felt like your voice hasn't been heard.
Mhm.
Or you have it where you haven't had a strong support system. So you feel like you have to support yourself.
Mhm.
Is it okay to be narcissistic or have narcissistic traits? I guess it would depend on how it impacts those that are around you.
Mm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It
Sure.
makes a major difference
Yeah.
if you're impacting lives. I have conversations with some young ladies, and in the process of having conversations, no matter what she is being called for, the conversation always turns around and goes around about her.
Mhm.
Now here's the sad part about it. She's had a history of drug abuse.
Mm.
She has been dealt with domestic violence in
Mhm.
relationships. So now I guess I listen more than I speak.
Mhm.
Doesn't mean I don't hear more than I say.
Mhm.
I just sometimes I think that people that need to have their voice validated need to be heard
Absolutely.
and don't realize they have narcissistic tendencies.
Mm.
Um, Now, if you are in that situation, it's different than someone dealing with a narcissist in a relationship. Um, and a relationship means all sorts because it could be siblings,
Mm.
it could be friends,
Mhm.
but it could
Co-workers.
also be, your significant other
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
that you have to deal with. And because narcissism is so harmful, um, the way it impacts other people, you always have to be careful. Now, most people know that when I speak, I'm always going to give something from the Word. The Bible teaches us to be conscious. And if you need the address, it's Ephesians 4:29, where it tells us to be conscious of what comes, and I'm paraphrasing it, what comes from our mouth because of the way it impacts other people.
Right.
And a lot of times people don't realize it's not what you're saying, it's how you're saying it,
Mhm.
that the impact, which means the way it forcefully affects someone.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
So because it's forcefully affecting them, people don't realize, again, you may in your mind think that you're saying something so gentle and so soft, but it sounds like you're cursing them out
Mm.
Mhm.
without even you raising your voice
Mhm.
because you have a harsh tone.
Sharp communication.
And your body language
Mhm.
is brash, and so that body language and the tone of voice together sends a powerful message.
Absolutely.
Always.
People don't think that you have to yell to consider that a level of being, harsh with someone. You can have just a monotone tone in your voice, and you still slice somebody with what you say.
Oh,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
You could be very quiet and, just impact somebody back to what you were saying. It's how you deliver the message
Mm-hmm.
and how you say things. And some people, they intentionally say things because they want to hurt that individual.
Right.
However, I think there's also people who don't even realize what they say affects someone in a certain manner, and maybe because that's what they're used to. Back to what you, I love the fact that you kind of take it back to that childhood, growing up in environments that possibly have led them to that level of traits that are narcissistic traits, because of how they were treated. And that's what they, in turn, how they treat others and how they speak to others. And you're right, you have to have a level of consciousness of yourself and how you speak to people, how you relate to people,
Absolutely.
you know, your tone, your mannerism, your everything. Like, you can get a message across and not have to be so brash. And it doesn't even have to be in the tone of your voice,
Right.
being
Right.
so high and elevated. It can be just a simple, calm sounding conversation, but it's what you say and what you project could be what hurts them.
Yeah, what you project behind your words
Mm-hmm.
is very powerful, and people don't realize that they are. And let me just say, narcissists don't know that they're narcissists.
That's what I was gonna say. I don't know that people
Some
know.
Some do.
Some do. You're
Some
probably
are,
right.
Some are very well aware they are,
Well,
but they don't take accountability for it.
Exactly.
There's a difference.
I agree with you. Everything that I read said that most times they don't. So that means that there are times, and those who do know and are doing it purposely because they're striking out, they're in pain, and they're trying to release their pain by dumping it on other people.
Hurt people, hurt people.
Hurt people, exactly. you
Well, they
know?
won't admit they're narcissists. They'll just say that's because somebody, again, projecting, right?
Right.
Somebody else is at fault. They made me react in a certain manner.
Right.
And not saying that there aren't cases like that.
Right.
However, more so than not, it's always someone else's fault.
Oh yeah.
It's never their own.
Yeah, narcissists will never take responsibility for what they do or say,
Mm-hmm.
And so trying to get them to understand your feelings about what they're saying and what they're doing, how they're interacting with you, is most times a waste of time. And one of the things a therapist who's a friend of mine said, a lot of therapists won't even deal with narcissists because the narcissist will sit in the therapy office,
Never admit to anything.
and won't admit to anything, and try and make the therapist feel like there's something wrong with them.
That's a trait. That is a trait. And that's the abuse element of a narcissist in relationships.
So are there different types of narcissism?
Yes, from what I was able to research and find out, there's overt narcissism, covert narcissism, antagonistic narcissism, communal narcissism, and malignant narcissist. Now, our former president was diagnosed. Our former president Trump. Let me make sure I get it right.
She said it. I didn't say it.
Was diagnosed as a malignant narcissist by a therapist who,
you got the news here first.
Yeah, he put it out there, and I'm like, wow, And as I read what each
Sounds
one
like
of
some form of cancer.
oh yeah, girl, yeah. And
it's unfortunate because really, I mean, I'm only laughing because we kind of all know. I mean, if nobody knows this, I mean, just you had to have listened to him.
Go back and look at a YouTube video.
yeah.
Go back and
Find
look at this.
something with him on it.
Yeah, exactly, and just watch it.
Yeah.
And if there are any malignant narcissists around you or in your life, you will definitely be able to identify them if you study the personality of our former president. So,
Well, can you explain the differences in those types? That way, those that are listening can get an understanding of what they are.
oh, absolutely. Overt narcissism. Overt narcissism is also known by several other names, including grandiose narcissism and agentic narcissism. This type of narcissism is what most people associate with a narcissistic personality. Someone with overt narcissism might come across as outgoing, arrogant, entitled, overbearing, having an exaggerated self-image, needing to be praised and admired, exploitive, and competitive, and lacking empathy.
Damn, that's this whole new generation.
So wait. So I'm thinking about all these words, right? And I literally have in my head pictures of individuals who have shown this type of trait. However, again, I also go back to what you said, and let's be clear because we have to reiterate this. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to have multiple traits to be considered a narcissist,
Yeah,
and you have
five on a regular basis.
On a regular basis,
You know, like this is something that they exhibit daily. You know, not occasionally. You know,
Right.
this is who they are. That's who they have become.
When I think of like the more abusive level of this, is that kind of overbearing, arrogant nature, entitlement, et cetera, and so on, right?
Right.
And it goes back to what you're saying. This, if you think about today, this day and age, we've almost created this
A narcissistic generation.
narcissistic generation.
Yeah.
We complain about them being entitled. We complained about them feeling like like the world revolves around them. I remember when I was growing up, I would hear the world does not revolve around you.
Mm-hmm.
But
Often.
this generation, I mean, you got some of these kids where and I say kids because I'm a grown up, but where they're entitled, their feelings are more important than the next person's feelings. They feel like they're more in control, like they have to stand out more, and you have to give them praise, and like, well, I told you the truth. Well, hell, you're not supposed to lie. Like, it's what you're saying is what you're supposed to do. Well, at least I didn't go to jail. You're not supposed to
go to jail.
Right.
Exactly.
Like, so is it that you don't know, or is it that we don't realize what we do? So we always have to learn, always be mindful that people are watching us, no matter where we are, no matter what we're doing. We could be milling around in the supermarket alone. Believe you, somebody has seen you, and they'll tell you later, oh, I saw you the other day, you was in the supermarket, and they will tell you what you had on. They will tell you those things. So our personalities and the way we move around and the way we show the example. And unfortunately, a lot of parents have been overcompensating. Overcompensating for maybe they don't, like you hear the young people say, I don't want to raise you the way I was raised.
Yeah, exactly.
Unfortunately, you don't even realize that as much as you might have dealt with dysfunction, you're supposed to learn from it.
Right,
absolutely.
Right? So I learned, I am, my family's life has been the definition of dysfunction, and yet I still had to learn how to cope and function in the world without having a voice, without being seen. So my goal was to break those generational curses. So some narcissists actually become narcissists because they are born into a narcissistic family. It's unfortunate where they don't believe that they have to listen to anybody else in the world except those narcissists that they call parents. And yet, these are the people that's walking around.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Absolutely. And, unfortunately, people who grew up in dysfunctional households often, as you said, Sherry, they don't want their children to grow up the way they did, but they don't realize that they are not allowing their children to develop good coping skills
and healthy,
good life skills, period.
Right.
Because everything I went through, and I too, like Sherry, I grew up in a very dysfunctional household, but it made me strong. It made me the woman I am because I had to figure out how to get through all of that and to get to adulthood and then to grow through adulthood and to learn the lessons I needed to learn to become a better person than the household I grew up in.
Well, I mean, it's sort of kind of, it does a service and a disservice. It all depends on how you deal
How
with
you
it,
deal with it,
right?
exactly.
So what I didn't want was to do a disservice.
Right.
Now, there's some experiences that I've experienced that you don't ever have to experience
Right. Oh,
to know that it was traumatic.
Right.
I am going to let you know how horrible it was. I am going to let you know that, but I'm also going to I'm going to show you something different, because you don't have to experience everything
Absolutely.
in order for you to say that you lived.
Right.
Like, you just don't. It's unfortunate. Like, a lot of people don't realize that when you grow up in an alcoholic or drug abusing parent in your household, that you have this, you're more susceptible of becoming addicted to those same substances that they are.
Mm-hmm.
So you could decide either you're going to or you're not going to.
Absolutely.
Because now that I'm an adult, I can make those decisions on my own.
Absolutely. Sure.
And my choices deal with consequences. And narcissism is huge. So you gave us the definition of one type.
Mm-hmm.
Now, can you tell us the other types?
Okay, covert narcissism. Now, this is real interesting. Also known as vulnerable narcissism and closet narcissism. Covert narcissism is the contrast to overt narcissism. While many people think of narcissism as a loud and overbearing trait, people with covert narcissism don't fit this pattern. Instead, some common traits of someone with covert narcissism include expressions of low self-esteem, higher likelihood of experiencing anxiety, depression, and shame, introversion, insecurity or low confidence, defensiveness, avoidance, and a tendency to feel or play the victim. While someone with covert narcissism will still be very self-focused, this is likely to conflict with a deep fear or sense of not being enough.
That's crazy.
Covert narcissism is most strongly linked to high neuroticism, which is a tendency to experience unpleasant emotions and disagreeableness. Someone with covert narcissism is likely to have a hard time accepting criticism. Ooh, I know folks like that. But unlike a person with overt narcissism, someone with covert narcissism may be more likely to internalize or take in the criticism more harshly than it was intended. Research suggests the categories of covert and overt narcissism aren't always mutually exclusive. In other words, someone with overt narcissism might go through a period where they show more signs of covert narcissism, and some traits are interchangeable.
So that is so I was just thinking about that before you read that, because I started thinking I've known people who have been one side or the other at some point in their lives or in their relationships. And I mean, now I'm like thinking, I'm like, oh my God, so you can have multiple sides of that narcissistic trait,
right,
that you don't realize it is truly part of the disorder,
right,
in its entirety. And it doesn't necessarily have to be one or the other. You could have multiple layers of it at some point in your life. And I feel like it goes back to what you were saying, Sherry. It's all in the experiences you've gone through in life that there are triggers out there, right? There's triggers that come that you may put yourselves in different realms of this behavior and this disorder,
right,
based on those particular triggers.
based on what's going on.
Right.
But you have to, I guess it's more so you have to get a truer understanding of it, because you have those that have that grandiose attitude, but it comes from
Insecurity.
how truly insecure they
Yeah.
really
They
are.
really
with
are, exactly.
themselves.
Yep.
I agree.
So it's like, so if you do the comparison, it's frightening.
Yeah.
It just really is frightening because narcissists don't consider themselves victims. They consider themselves victors.
Mhm.
Like they're going to succeed in everything. I am better than you in this, and I am better than you in that. And yet, you could have the covert one that you just described
It's a victim.
that feels
They're being victimized.
it's not my fault.
Right.
You did it.
Right.
It's your fault.
And you
Right.
don't understand.
Right.
You just don't understand.
Right,
You know?
right.
Yeah. So
Right.
they project it back onto the person that they're interacting with. They'll never take responsibility and never be accountable for their actions and what's going on in their lives. They won't take a deep, hard look at themselves
Mhm.
and understand what's going on. But I always say you have to stand face to face with those demons. You know, you can't stuff them down in the closets of your inner temple and expect that they're going to stay there, because sooner or later those demons are going to pop out of that closet and boo.
Be surprised.
Yeah, boo, here I am. And then you got to deal with it.
You got to deal with that.
Well, you have some people that are experiencing and dealing with narcissism, and yet they don't actually realize that it's a specific kind of behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't.
You know, because to them it's their norm.
It's that's who they are.
This is
Well, this is who I am.
Well, it's either that,
Mhm.
this is who I am, or the person who's receiving end of that behavior that's who they are.
Yeah,
That's who they are. Oh, don't worry about it. That's who they are. It's all right. That's who they are.
We often make excuses.
We
for
make
them.
excuses.
We
We
make
make
excuses
excuses
for
for
people's bad behavior.
And we make excuses for our bad behavior
Absolutely.
as well as
Absolutely.
in this realm of traits, right?
Absolutely.
I just want to quickly say, anybody who's interested, comments, questions, 888-304-4401. We know y'all have some comments. Know people who have narcissistic
And we know you have
traits.
something to say.
And we know you have something to say, and this is always what we do on Sistership Sunday, so please make sure you call in 888-304-4401.
We like to say here is where you have a voice.
Exactly.
And we want to hear you. We are concerned and we look forward to your finding the courage to share what you feel is important to share with others. So, okay.
Let's go down the list. Let's
Okay,
go.
the
There's
three, antagonistic narcissism. According to some research, antagonistic narcissism is a subtype of overt narcissism. With this aspect of narcissism, the focus is on rivalry and competition.
Ooh.
Some features of antagonistic narcissism include arrogance, tendency to take advantage of others, tendency to compete with others, disagreeability, or proneness to argument. According to research about facets of narcissism and forgiveness, those with antagonistic narcissism reported they were less likely to forgive others than people with other types of narcissism. A 2017 study also indicates that people with antagonistic narcissism may also have lower levels of trust in people.
Others.
Yeah, in others, exactly.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to that, maybe that sense of not feeling valued or as, again, growing up and being hurt by others.
Absolutely. Consistently
hurt by
other
others.
people. Exactly.
Man, I listened to this and I'm like, there's so many people, and this is what I say. I didn't see this on social media, and again, I haven't been on as often as I used to because of my job. However, when I do get on, I sometimes have to take a step back and say, I just need to post what I need to post and
get off. That's what I've done these days.
Because I see these traits in people where they're like, they down others and, they put themselves on this pedestal and they don't trust the other individuals and they're kind of copping this attitude of, well, they're never going to be like me because they don't do X like I do. And I'm like, that is not even a healthy relationship you have with yourself. If
Absolutely.
you feel that you're entitled or you are this person on a pedestal because of what you went through life and what you did and what your outcomes were, and you're slopping on people that are not where you are.
Absolutely.
Like
Absolutely.
you can't, and that's gets into that arguing with people and being aggressive with folks and that arrogance and that tendency to just down other people all the time.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's not a healthy thing, and people need to understand that. It's judging others in that manner is a level of narcissistic trait that you need to contend with yourself.
Absolutely. And, always say to people, be a good judge of character. It's important that we be a good judge of character. But there's a difference between being a good judge of character and being judgmental, condemning other people. Okay? In the Bible, Deborah was a good judge. She was a good judge of people. She was a good judge. She was able to make good choices because she was a good judge of people. So we need to understand that it's okay to be a good judge of the people around you so that you don't fall victim or become victimized to the misgivings or the misbehaviors of other people. Everybody isn't wonderful. Everybody is not a good person. And so when we think that they are, and we just go traipsing on in like, oh, yes, that's such a nice person, and blah, 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 but refusing to see the other personality traits that you have to question or at least stand back and not make excuses for, because often we make excuses because we don't want to deal with it. We don't want to face the reality of who this person really is and what we're seeing. So we make excuses, and that's one of the biggest problems I think human beings have, is that we make excuses for everything. We make excuses for things that we should never make excuses for.
And I'm just going to say competing with people, tendency to compete with others. There's healthy competition.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? There's
absolutely.
respectful competition. And when we talk about competition, it's competing with one or others, right? But there's still a team concept there when we talk about competition.
Absolutely.
We have to be careful when we win, right? That we're not downing the people who have not won, right? I mean, and it goes back to like children today. It's not healthy. They feel that if they don't win, that there's a big problem. It's like the crying and the booing
there's
and the
something
this
wrong
and there's
with
something
them.
wrong with them and whatever have you. And then the people that do win, this whole reaction of, constantly digging somebody because they didn't win, that's not healthy.
That's not good.
That's not healthy. You understand, we're all team players in this country. You know what I'm saying? We're all team players here. And yes, you might win today and somebody might win tomorrow, but you got to be humble in those situations. And that's where that piece of it, that balance is needed, is that humbleness.
Absolutely. And I'm going to use my granddaughter Taylor as an example. She won every race. She's a runner. So she won every race that she was in, and she was in just about every race. And for the last race, they took her out because they wanted to give other children an opportunity to win. Now, we didn't exactly think that was good, because competition is competition. If you're not winning, it should make you be willing to work harder.
Yeah.
But sometimes we're babying children so that they don't think they have to work harder. Somebody's going to make an allowance for them, and we said to Taylor, I said, this is a gift. This is a talent you have, and we want you to continue, but we want you to remain humble and recognize that, it's a gift that you have. And other children may not understand that it's a gift and may feel a little slighted, but You have to be who you are, and you are striving to be the best with respect to who you are, and that's okay,
And you know what? It also goes to teaching others, right? I
Mhm.
mean, it's that humbleness in winning competitions, but it's
Right.
also elevating others and teaching others and training others into what can they do also to get there with you.
Absolutely.
You want to bring people up with you, not tear them down every single chance you get.
Absolutely. Then there's communal narcissism. Communal narcissism is another type of overt narcissism, and it's usually seen as the opposite of antagonistic narcissism. Someone with communal narcissism values fairness and is likely to see themselves as altruistic. But research published in 2018 suggests there is a gap between these beliefs and the person's behavior. People with communal narcissism might become easily morally outraged, describe themselves as empathetic and generous, react strongly to things they see as unfair. So, what makes communal narcissism different from genuine concern for the well being of others? The key difference is that for people with communal narcissism, social power and self-importance are playing major roles. For example, while communal narcissism might cause you to say and believe you have a strong moral code or care for others, you might not realize the way you treat others doesn't match up with your beliefs.
Interesting.
Need I say more?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So there's this conflict there.
There's conflict of what you show versus how you portray yourself versus what you actually realistically show to others.
Absolutely.
So in other words, you could be living a hypocritical lifestyle.
It sounds to me like this is the quintessential. Yeah, I got stuck there because it's the quintessential form of hypocrite. Or being a hypocrisy. So
interesting.
Okay, and the last, malignant narcissism. Narcissism can exist at different levels of severity, and malignant narcissism is a more severe form. It can also cause more problems for the person living with it. Malignant narcissism is more closely connected to overt than covert narcissism. Someone with malignant narcissism may have many common traits of narcissism, like a strong need for praise and to be elevated above others. But in addition, malignant narcissism can show up as vindictiveness, sadism, or getting enjoyment from the pain of others, aggression when interacting with other people, paranoia, or heightened worry about potential threats. Someone with malignant narcissism may also share some traits with antisocial personality disorder. This means someone with malignant narcissism could be more likely to experience legal trouble, as we know our former president is, or substance use disorder. I mean, I'm just saying.
We're just throwing it out there
because it's already known fact. So I'm not sharing anything that.
Let me remind you of that disclaimer.
The disclaimer is the opinions expressed by those on this broadcast are not directly related to the opinions of Gynesis Radio.
Or management,
etc. Yeah.
We keep it reals over here.
Yeah. In a study involving people with borderline personality disorder, those with malignant narcissism had a harder time reducing anxiety and gaining a better ability to function in day-to-day life.
Wow. That's deep.
Yeah, that's deep. I mean, that's a bad case of it, and a very obvious case. I mean, you can't miss someone who's
vindictiveness
you can't miss someone who's who's a
Manipulation.
malignant narcissist. You can't miss them. You might have difficulty with some of the others, but this one is in your face nuts. I'm sorry.
So I have to say, I know we're kind of laughing at it is a serious subject, so I want to say that.
Absolutely.
We're laughing because what's interesting is that we know so many people in society.
Yeah.
In our relationships and in our circles and just in
life in general.
life in general,
yeah.
that fall into this. It's almost to the point of it's comical because we don't even realize that we're dealing with these type of individuals.
Absolutely. And you know what?
And
Let
that
me just say it's better.
And that we fit in some of these traits.
And we fit in some of these traits as well.
Some of these traits, but to be self-aware,
right,
enables us to control these traits
Mm-hmm.
and to pull our own coats when we realize we're exercising some of these traits, and even become apologetic when we are not having a healthy interaction with other people, and sometimes we laugh. Let me just say we laugh sometimes to keep from crying.
Yeah.
We really do, because some of these things, some of these traits are very sad. And, if we could, we'd wave a magic wand and make everybody okay. But we don't have that power. So what we do is we seek here on the sistership to empower you with the knowledge you need to transform it into the wisdom of how you interact with or not with people who are narcissistic.
Well, let's just be clear. Is there a way to overcome it? Absolutely. Does that mean that you can just throw those areas of your life away? No. It's the point in your life where you have to learn to live with or live without. Let's be clear. It is very, very, very important that we learn to protect our peace.
Exactly.
Not for anyone else, but for ourselves.
Exactly.
We are living in a world that narcissism is a factor, and we deal with it every day.
Absolutely.
In one form or another, whether it's at work, school, home, just in general.
Right.
When you're out in the street, and you'll hear somebody say, well, what's wrong with these people? Well, they're living a life.
Broken people.
We are walking, just be conscious that we are walking around with wounded people.
Yes.
Absolutely.
In many different forms.
Right.
Is this a disorder that a lot of people have? Unfortunately so.
Yes.
But again, it is very important to take care of your mental health.
Absolutely.
There's no shame in getting help through therapy.
Right.
Talk therapy is probably one of the most powerful therapy that you could experience. And talk therapy is just you constantly having a conversation and digging deep and finding the help or where it started. You always got to find the root of it so that you can pull it from the root in order for you to weed out the negativity that some hold on to. I don't have a number for you. Google probably does. I don't know what your insurances are, if you even have it, but there are programs where you can get free psychological help. Therapeutic help, I tell you, it is very important. Narcissism is one of the hardest things to learn to live with or overcome and get out of relationships where you've had to deal with it, because some narcissists are they verbally, emotionally, physically abusive, and they won't take accountability for it.
Absolutely.
But it's the person that comes out of it. Sometimes you're a victim, and then sometimes you're a volunteer, depending on what it is or how you continue to deal. Because once you can change what you have already acknowledged, but you can't change what you don't acknowledge. So in the manner of saying, There's definitely help out there. There's definite ways to overcome, be empowered, to learn from. Um, if you're not 100% sure how to find help, you could call a sistership or email us, and there's a way for us to actually research that information for you and get you the information that you may need. Um, I'm sorry that this is something that we have to deal with, but it's the reality
Absolutely.
of what we're living in right now.
Absolutely.
So as I get quiet and sit back in my corner,
Lady
No.
wisdom.
know that it's important that you
Yeah.
take care of you.
Oh, absolutely. And I've withdrawn from the general public to a large degree, primarily to take care of myself in all ways, mental, physically, spiritually. What other ways are there? Emotionally, the whole. You can't really take care of yourself inclusively when you are in a crowd of people all the time or around a lot of people all the time, because there's always something going on with other people, and that energy that comes at you
That's
sometimes.
the empath of you.
That I know.
It is,
because
the
I'm
empath.
the older, and I learned about
Mhm.
being an empath as I get older. My ability to sense on a higher level gets greater, and so I choose who I want to be around or who I'm going to be around. And being around crowds, it's just a lot of energy that overwhelms me. And a lot of people don't understand that about empaths, but that's the reality. And I have to deal with my reality. And I think all of us need to deal with our own reality. What is your reality? And are you dealing with it in a way that is healthy and productive and allowing you to grow through this journey of human life in a way that you feel empowered and comfortable with? That's important to face who you are and what affects and infects you.
Yeah, I think coming back to just narcissistic traits and abuse and relationships, and again back to Lady Wisdom, I mean, it's anyone, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be a partner in life, but just relationships, families,
In general.
friends, work relationships, anyone. If these people are breaking you down, okay, your individualization, they're devaluing you, they're rejecting you, that's the narcissistic abuse components. Those are the three parts of that narcissistic abuse that's occurring in your life. And in those scenarios, you have to, number one, identify them.
Right.
Understand those traits that we just discussed, and I'll quickly go through them. Grandiosity and self-importance, fantasies of success, perfection, or power, a strong conviction of being special and unique, a need for admiration and praise, entitlement, a pattern of exploiting others for personal gain, low empathy, envy, jealousy, and distrust, arrogance, haughtiness, and scorn. If those, you said 5 out of those 9, correct? So 5
Right.
out of those 9 traits, if you really look at your relationships and the individuals in your life, and those components, those traits are there, you are in a position of narcissistic abuse
Right.
relationship.
Right.
And I always say this, and when we talk about abuse in relationships, if you are feeling hurt and not safe in a relationship, and safe doesn't have to be physical. If you are not feeling safe in a relationship, there is a reason behind that, and you have to be in tune with how you're feeling.
Oh, absolutely. And not make excuses for
Right.
the other person.
Right.
You have to be genuine about what's going on so you can protect yourself, because our charge in life is to protect ourselves, not necessarily look for someone else to protect us, because no one can protect us better then we can protect ourselves.
And we have to hold those accountable that are treating us in that manner. You have to
Absolutely.
be vocal. You have to be, maybe it's sitting down and have a conversation with that individual. If it's a safe environment, sit down and say, look, this is how I'm feeling about how you are treating me or how you speak to me, or, you're devaluing me or whatever have you. Because if you're not having those conversations, these individuals that actually are narcissistic,
will eat you up alive.
they may not even know those traits themselves to be able to say, I am, or I have these traits and I'm hurting people in my life. Because I do truly feel there's a lot of people that don't even know they're narcissists.
Yeah, most people don't know they're narcissists.
So, so again, I think calling out and being very open in communication with, the relationships that you have and the individuals in your life. If you truly care about them, and I'll say that, if you truly care about them, you have to be open and honest with them.
Oh, absolutely.
And let them know how they're treating you and how you're feeling.
Absolutely.
If you don't value them and you don't care about them, then obviously you're not going to even address it. You're just going to allow it to,
You're going to step back.
because you're going to step back and just leave them and where they lay.
Leave
I'll
them,
say that.
Leave them be.
Leave them be and let them lay. But yes, you have to always take care of yourself. So going back to what you were saying, Lady Wisdom, is find help, look at resources out there, but first understand what it is you're feeling. Understand how that person is interacting with you and have that conversation and get help to help you to make sure that you're stronger in those situations. So you can identify those individuals and keep yourself away from those people who are hurting you, because if they're not going to change, then you're going to continue to stay in a relationship that's abusive.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's important that you know that taking care of yourself is very important.
Yes,
Oh,
first
very.
and foremost.
Protecting your peace is
Mhm.
important. But let's make it clear. It is selfless when you learn to take care of yourself.
Mhm.
You can't help anybody else until you take care of you.
That's right.
Absolutely.
So don't allow someone to say, well, you call yourself taking care of you, you selfish. No,
you're
no.
not.
you're actually selfless because you're taking care of you. Protect
Right.
your peace at all costs.
Absolutely.
If it means cutting off or letting go of people, if it means even family members could be toxic.
Mhm.
Oh, absolutely.
So you be mindful of that. Toxicity, no matter where it comes from, you have to learn to protect you from it. And that means taking care of yourself. That's where it starts and that's where it ends.
Okay. Well,
So with that said,
Yeah.
we are at the end of Sistership Sunday today. We hope you all enjoyed. We hope you've got nuggets of knowledge.
Yeah.
And you have the wisdom to kind of work through the challenges that you might be going through, and as it relates to this particular subject today. We thank you all for joining us today. Miss Lady Wisdom, Mama C, and your girl Steph-Fire. Join us every Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on Gynesis Radio, thesistership.com, where we come together and just share Sistership Sunday with you. And we hope you continue to join us.
absolutely.
We'll see you next Sunday. Love y'all.
Bye, everyone.
care.
Take care.
Okay.